8 signs you're breaking yourself by staying where you're not respected/Stoic mindset. Part 1. Introduction. There are moments in life when you begin to notice a quiet discomfort in the environments you spend the most time in. It may not be obvious at first, and you might not even have the right words to explain what you are feeling. But something deep inside you starts telling you that you are not being treated the way you deserve. Many people ignore this feeling for a long time because they want to keep the peace, maintain relationships, or avoid difficult changes. However, the truth is that staying in places where respect is missing slowly affects your mind, your emotions, and even your sense of identity. Stoic philosophy teaches that your inner peace and dignity are extremely valuable. They are not things you should sacrifice just to remain comfortable or accepted by others. When respect disappears from an environment, the impact is not always loud or dramatic. Instead, it happens quietly and gradually. Your confidence begins to shrink, your motivation weakens, and your sense of self slowly becomes unclear. In this video, we are going to explore powerful signs that reveal when you may be hurting yourself by staying too long where you are not respected. If you want to strengthen your mindset and learn how to protect your peace like the Stoic thinkers did, make sure you subscribe to this channel. This community is growing with people who want to become mentally stronger and more self-aware every day. 1. You constantly feel emotionally drained around them. One of the first and most noticeable signs that you are staying in an environment where respect is missing is emotional exhaustion that seems to follow you after certain interactions. This type of tiredness goes beyond the normal fatigue that comes from daily responsibilities or work. Instead, it feels like your energy is slowly being pulled away every time you spend time with certain people or remain in certain situations. After conversations or gatherings, you might find yourself feeling mentally heavy, discouraged, or unusually quiet. This happens because your mind is constantly working in the background to protect you from negativity, criticism, or subtle forms of disrespect. Even if people are not openly attacking you, small behaviors like ignoring your ideas, interrupting you, or treating your presence as unimportant can gradually wear down your emotional energy. Over time, your brain becomes alert and defensive in these environments, which leads to exhaustion. Stoic thinkers believed strongly in protecting the mind from unnecessary disturbance. They understood that the environment you stay in has a powerful influence on your mental clarity and peace. When you are constantly drained by the people around you, it becomes difficult to think clearly, stay motivated, or pursue meaningful goals. The right environment may challenge you to grow, but it will not consistently leave you feeling empty or depleted. Over time, this drains your mental strength. You may begin feeling less motivated to speak, share ideas, or participate in conversations. Some people even start avoiding certain situations entirely because they know how emotionally exhausting those interactions will be. Stoicism reminds us that energy is a valuable resource. Marcus Aurelius wrote about protecting the mind from unnecessary disturbance. When you stay too long in draining environments, you lose the clarity and peace needed to live a strong and purposeful life. 2. You begin to doubt your own worth. Another powerful sign that you are staying in a place where respect is lacking is when you slowly begin to question your own value as a person. This change does not happen suddenly. Instead, it develops over time through repeated experiences where your opinions are dismissed, your efforts go unnoticed, or your presence seems unimportant to others. At the beginning, you might try to ignore these situations. You may tell yourself that people are just busy or that the behavior is unintentional. However, when these experiences continue again and again, your mind begins to absorb the message that you are not valued as much as you should be. Even strong and confident individuals can begin to feel uncertain about themselves when surrounded by constant disregard. You might notice that you hesitate more before sharing your thoughts. You might start thinking twice before expressing ideas that you once shared freely. This is how self-doubt slowly grows. Instead of trusting your abilities and perspectives, you begin questioning whether your voice truly matters. When your ideas are ignored repeatedly, when your efforts are not acknowledged, or when people treat you as if your presence is optional, your mind begins to absorb that message. Even if it is not true, your brain starts wondering whether something is wrong with you. You might start second-guessing yourself. You hesitate before speaking. You begin asking yourself whether your thoughts are valuable, or whether you should just stay quiet. This is how self-doubt begins to grow. Stoic philosophy teaches that our value should come from our character and actions, not from the approval of others. However, our environment still influences how we think and feel. If you spend enough time in a place where you are constantly undervalued, it becomes difficult to maintain confidence. Stoic philosophy reminds us that our value should come from our character, actions, and integrity rather than the opinions of others. However, the environment we remain in still has a psychological effect on us. If you spend too much time in a place that constantly undermines you, it becomes harder to maintain a strong sense of self-worth. Recognizing this shift in your mindset is extremely important because it often signals that your environment is slowly affecting your confidence and identity. 3. You feel like you must constantly prove yourself. In environments where respect naturally exists, people do not feel the need to constantly prove their value. Their presence is acknowledged, their efforts are recognized, and their contributions are taken seriously. However, when you are in a place where respect is missing, you may begin to feel like you must continuously demonstrate your worth just to be noticed or taken seriously. You might find yourself working harder than necessary, explaining your decisions repeatedly, or going above and beyond in hopes that eventually people will recognize your effort. At first, this may seem like determination or ambition, but over time it can become emotionally exhausting and discouraging. No matter how much you do, it never seems to change how people treat you. This creates a cycle that many people fall into without realizing it. The more they feel undervalued, the more they try to prove themselves. But the environment remains unchanged, which leads to frustration and emotional fatigue. Stoicism teaches an important lesson about focusing on what is within your control. Your effort, discipline, and character are within your control, but how others perceive you is not. When you spend too much energy trying to gain recognition from people who refuse to see your value, you end up losing the peace of mind that Stoicism encourages. A wise person eventually realizes that respect cannot be forced. It must exist naturally in the environment you choose to remain in. 4. Your boundaries are ignored repeatedly. Boundaries are one of the clearest expressions of self-respect. They communicate what you are comfortable with, what you value, and how you expect to be treated by others. In environments where respect exists, people listen when you express your limits. They acknowledge your time, your emotions, and your personal space. However, when respect is missing, boundaries often become something that others overlook or disregard. You may notice that people continue behaviors that you have already explained make you uncomfortable. They may interrupt you, dismiss your concerns, or act as if your feelings are not important enough to consider. Over time, repeated boundary violations can create deep frustration and emotional fatigue. You may begin to feel like your voice does not matter, which can lead to silence or withdrawal. Some people even begin questioning whether they should have boundaries at all, which is a dangerous mindset to develop. Stoic philosophy teaches personal responsibility and inner discipline. It reminds us that while we cannot control how others behave, we can control what we tolerate and allow into our lives. Protecting your boundaries is a necessary part of maintaining dignity and self-respect. When your boundaries are ignored consistently, it often signals that the environment around you does not truly value your presence or well-being. Part 2. 5. You slowly stop being yourself. One of the most damaging effects of staying where you are not respected is that you gradually stop expressing who you truly are. This change usually happens quietly and without much awareness at first. You may begin holding back opinions during conversations or avoiding topics that once interested you because you know your words will be ignored or dismissed. Over time, this habit grows stronger. Instead of speaking freely, you begin analyzing every word before saying it. You start thinking about how others will react rather than simply sharing your thoughts honestly. Eventually, you may realize that you are no longer acting like the person you used to be. This is a subtle form of losing your authenticity. You are physically present in the environment, but mentally you are slowly withdrawing. Your ideas, creativity, and personality begin to shrink because the environment does not encourage or respect them. Stoicism places great importance on living according to truth and personal values. When you are forced to hide parts of yourself just to avoid being dismissed or criticized, it creates an internal conflict that can lead to frustration and emotional distance. Recognizing this change is important because it helps you understand how deeply an environment can affect your identity. 6. You are always the one sacrificing. In healthy relationships and environments, effort flows in both directions. People support each other, compromise when necessary, and show appreciation for the energy that each person brings. But when respect is missing, the balance slowly disappears. One person begins to carry most of the responsibility, effort, and emotional labor. You may find yourself constantly adjusting your schedule, giving your time, offering help, and making sacrifices for others while rarely receiving the same level of care in return. At first, you might not notice it because you genuinely want to help or maintain peace. However, over time, the imbalance becomes more noticeable and emotionally draining. This pattern can create a quiet feeling of being taken for granted. You continue giving because you hope the situation will improve, but deep down you start feeling unappreciated. Stoicism teaches the importance of wisdom in how we invest our energy. Being kind and supportive is valuable, but constantly neglecting your own needs is not strength. It is important to recognize when giving becomes one-sided and begins to affect your well-being. Understanding this imbalance can help you reflect on whether your effort is truly valued or simply expected without appreciation. 7. Your confidence slowly disappears. Confidence is something that develops through experiences where we feel respected, capable, and valued. But when you stay in environments where your efforts are ignored or criticized, that confidence can slowly begin to fade. It rarely disappears all at once. Instead, it gradually weakens over time as repeated experiences affect the way you see yourself. You may notice that you hesitate before making decisions that once felt easy. You might begin second-guessing your abilities even when you know you are capable. Situations that once excited you may start feeling intimidating because you are no longer sure how others will react. This shift in mindset is often the result of long-term exposure to an environment that does not acknowledge your strengths or contributions. Even strong individuals can feel uncertain when surrounded by constant doubt or dismissal. Stoic thinkers emphasize the importance of maintaining inner stability regardless of external circumstances. However, they also understood that the people we surround ourselves with can influence our mental state. Recognizing when your confidence is fading is important because it allows you to address the environment that may be contributing to that change. 8. Deep down, you know you deserve better. Perhaps the strongest sign of all is the quiet awareness that something in your life is not right. Even when you try to ignore it, a part of you recognizes that you are not being treated with the respect and appreciation that you deserve. This feeling often appears during moments of reflection when you notice how much effort you give compared to how little you receive. Many people ignore this inner voice because change can feel uncertain and uncomfortable. Leaving familiar environments, relationships, or situations can be difficult, even when they are not healthy. However, Stoicism teaches that living in truth is more important than staying in comfort. When you acknowledge that you deserve better treatment, you begin reclaiming your personal power. You start seeing your life more clearly and understanding that respect is not something you should constantly fight for. Listening to this inner awareness is often the first step toward growth, clarity, and emotional freedom. Final message to your audience. If you found yourself relating to some of these signs, know that you are not alone. Many people go through this experience without realizing how much their environment is affecting their mindset and emotional well-being. The important thing is awareness. Once you recognize these patterns, you can begin making decisions that protect your peace, dignity, and personal growth. If you want more powerful Stoic lessons that can help you build mental strength, emotional discipline, and a stronger mindset, make sure you subscribe to this channel. This channel is for people who want to grow, become wiser, and develop the confidence to live a better life. And remember, the moment you start valuing yourself more is the moment your life begins to change.